friends reading Ulysses to each other. For David, his mother was the center of the universe. She cooked his favorites, roast beef and macaroni and cheese, and baked his chocolate birthday cake, and drove the children where they needed to go in her VW Bug. Later, after an accident, she replaced it with a Gremlin. She made beef bourguignon on David's birthday and sewed labels into his clothes, some of which Wallace would still wear in college. No one else listened to David as his mother did. She was smart and funny, easy to confide in, and included him in her love of words. Even in later years, and in the midst of his struggle with the legacy of his childhood, he would always speak with affection of the passion for words and grammar she had given him. If there was no word for a thing, Sally Wallace would invent it. Greebles meant little bits of lint, especially those that feet brought into bed. Twanger was the word for something whose name you didn't know or couldn't remember. She loved the word fantods, meaning a feeling of deep fear or repulsion, and talked of the howling fantods, this fear intensified. These words, like much of his childhood, would wind up in Wallace's work. To outside eyes, Sally's enthusiasm for correct usage might seem extreme. When someone made a grammatical mistake at the Wallace dinner table, she would cough into her napkin repeatedly until the speaker saw the error. She protested to supermarkets whenever she saw the sign 10 items or less posted above their express checkout lines. Wallace would later give this campaign in Infinite Jest to the predatory mother figure of Avril Incandenza, co-founder of Militant Grammarians of Massachusetts. For Sally, grammar was more than just a tool. It gave membership in the club of educated persons. The intimation that so much was at stake in each utterance thrilled David and added to the excitement of having a gifted mother. As did her sensitivity. Sally hated to shout. If she was upset by something, she would write a note, and if David or Amy had a response, they would slip it back under her door in turn. Even as a little boy, Wallace was attuned to the delicate drama of personality. He wrote when he was around 5 years old, and one hears in the words the sigh of the woman who prompted it. My mother works so hard, and for bread she needs some lard. She bakes the bread and makes the bed, and when she's through, she feels she's dead. The boy loved his father, too, an affectionate if slightly abstracted figure, the firm, gentle man who read to him every night at the dinner table. My father's got a beautiful reading voice, Wallace told an interviewer when he was in his mid-30s. And I remember being 5 and Amy being 3 and Dad reading Moby Dick to us, the unexpurgated Moby Dick. Before, I think halfway through, Mom pulled him aside and explained to him that, little kids were not apt to find, cytology all that interesting. So they were, but I think by the end, Amy was exempted. And I did it just as this kind of, Dad, I love you, I'm going to sit here and listen. The memory is exaggerated. Wallace's father says he knew enough not to read Moby Dick, certainly not its duller parts, to small children. But it captures well the relationships in the family as David saw them. The kind, somewhat otherworldly father, the non-combatant younger sister, and David in the center, at once shielded by his mother and trying to break free of her dominion. Wallace's childhood was happy and ordinary. He would emphasize this in later years. He was a skinny, gap-toothed kid with flaccid hair cut in bangs. He liked the Chicago Bears, loved their star linebacker Dick Butkus. He would make a great sergeant in the War of Vietnam, he wrote in a school assignment, and wanted to be a football player too, or a brain surgeon to help his mother's nerves. He thought of himself as normal, and was normal. But he was also identifiably from a talented family, one in love, not unlike Salinger's Glass family, with the ability to impose their notional world on the real one. Behave, his mother once told him when he was 3. I am Have, David responded. On a car trip when he was 8 or 9, the family agreed to substitute 3.14159 for every mention of the word pie in their conversation. Wallace was verbal, but he was not particularly literary. In fact, he saw himself as at least as good at logic and puzzles. One childhood friend remembers going to a book signing of Wallace's and being amazed when his friend could still throw out a 25-digit number they'd all memorized together as kids.